Alright, this is section 6-8 on using percent equations. So you're going to find this is the same basic section that we just did in section 6-6. Except that was supposed to be using percent proportions, and now we're actually going to be using percent equations like I taught in that section anyway. Let's go ahead and begin. We've got example number 1. Find 52% of 85. So all we're doing here is finding 0.52 of means times 85. So let's go ahead and multiply. So after multiplying here on the side, I ended up with 44.2. So that is my answer. That 44.2 is 52% of 85. So if you had a 44.2 as a score out of 85 points, you would have a 52% F. Alright, let's move on to example 2. And example 2 says 28 is what percent of 70? So again, let's write that as an equation. 28 means equals. What percent is P? Of is times. 70 is 70. Solve for P. So you do the opposite of timesing, which is dividing by 70. So my fraction is 28 over 70. I'm going to turn that to a percent. I first have to change it to a decimal. So I'm going bottom into top. 70 does not go into 2 or 28. 70 does go into 280 4 times exactly, because 7 times 4 is 28. So when we subtract, there's nothing left. So therefore my decimal is 0.4, but I got to move it 2 places right, which gives me 40%. And keep coming back to the original question, which asked what percent. So 40%. If you had a 28 out of 70 on a test or quiz, you would have a 40%. Once again, F. Let's go to example 3. And example 3 has 18 is 45% of what number? Let's write the equation. 18 equals 0.45. Of is times, and what number? I'm going to write n. So we're solving for n, so we do the opposite of timesing, which is dividing. So I'm going to divide by 0.45. Bottom into top. And actually, I forgot to move the decimal here 2 places. I got to move this 2 places. So my decimal should be right there. Alright, let's go. 45 into 1. Nope. Into 18. Nope. Into 480. I'm thinking 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry the 2. 4 times 4, 16 plus 2 is 18. Subtract, nothing left. Drop a 0. And then 45 goes into 0 0 times. So as you can see, this answer is 40. We do not have to convert that to a percent. This is just asking what number. So what number can be a decimal, or just the number 40. 40 is a decimal if you put a decimal right there, but you don't have to. And since you're not converting that to a percent, another thing to look at is there's already a number that has a percent. Usually, if the question has a percent in it, your answer would not be a percent. That's example 3. Let's go to 4. So here we go. On this one, it says Manuel wants to buy a skateboard. The regular price of the skateboard is $135. Suppose it is on sale at a 25% discount. Find the sale price of the skateboard. This is really similar to a question we've done in 4 Bytes recently, and I'm going to try to set it up that way. So the book might show it slightly different, but your original price, you have $135 as your original price, and we're subtracting 25% of 135, right? Because you're getting a discount. So we're subtracting 25% of that original number. Now, if you look at this a couple ways, what this ends up turning into is you have 100% of 135 minus 25% of 135 gives you 75% of 135. But, we can do this the way that might make sense to most of you. A lot of you probably don't need to have that, but this all might make sense. So we now have 135 times 0.25. Let's go ahead and do that on the side here. So after I multiplied 0.25 times 135 down here in this corner, I ended up with 135 dropping down minus 25% of 135 is 33.75. So now I'm subtracting. That's my discount. I'm saving $33.75. I now need to subtract those two. So 135 minus 33.75. We got to make sure we line up decimals. If we can borrow here, borrow there, carry the 1. 10 minus 5 is 5, 9 minus 7 is 2, 4 minus 3 is 1, 3 minus 3 is 0, and 1 drops down, or 1 minus 0 is 0. So my answer ends up being $101.25. Alright, there you go. That's how you do example number 4. Let's go to example 5. And example 5 says, suppose Samuel invests $1,200 at an annual rate of 6.5%. How long will it take until Samuel earns $195 in interest? Basically, I think this is a review question in a lot of ways because we've done this in Core Bytes. But we still use the formula I equals PRT. In this case, though, we're just filling out what we know. Samuel's investing $1,200. Well, $1,200 is the principal. That's how much you start out with. And when it says he's investing money, that's his starting amount. He's going to put $1,200 into an account and try to make money. So he puts $1,200. That's P. That's principal. R is the rate, the interest rate, and a rate is always the percent. And so they have 6.5%. You have to take that to a decimal. So it ends up being 0.065. And then T is time in years. But this is saying how long will it take. So T is going to end up being our variable. And it says how long will it take until Samuel earns $195 in interest. I stands for interest. So he wants to make $195 in total. So this is our equation. After you know how to plug things in, we've solved equations before, so we should know how to solve this. So I'm going to start doing some math here. First math is I'm going to multiply those two together. So let's do that first. So there's the multiplication off to the side. As you can see, my answer after I move the decimal 3 places is just the number 78. So this is 78 times T equals 195. Now how do we solve that? Get T by itself. This is a divide by 78. So let's divide by 78, crosses those out, and T equals basically whatever we get from that right there. So I'm going to divide 78, or bottom into top, so this ends up being 78 dividing into 195, decimal up. So you can see after I've divided 78 into 195, got my answer, nothing left down here at the bottom, 2.5 is my answer. And also remember that T is time, and the time is always in the form of years. So this would have to be 2.5 years, which you could convert to months. It'd be 2.5 years, which would be 12 months, and 6 months. So it ends up being 30 month. So it depends on what this is asking for, but this, you could just leave it as 2.5 years for the time. And that is how you do that problem. Just be aware that not all the problems on here will ask you to find t. Sometimes they will give you the time that it takes and ask you to find r. Or they might give you r and t and ask you to find p. But you don't really solve any of those any different than the one we just did. Just plug in for the numbers that they give you. And if the words in the problem don't make sense, you don't know which numbers go where, just make sure you ask myself or a classmate or someone you trust that knows what they're doing, just to help you plug things in right. But ultimately for the test, you're going to have to be able to do that on your own and know what those mean. Or if they give you p, r, and t, and all you have to do is find I, then those are the easiest ones, because all you have to do is multiply p times r times t. So that's all. And if you are given anything in months, make sure you convert the months to a fraction out of 12. For instance, if you had 7 months, how much interest can you make in 7 months? For t, you wouldn't put in 7, you'd put 7/12 because it's 7/12 of a year. That's just something to consider before you do a bunch of problems there. All right, that's all we got. Good luck.